Welcome to those of you who may be listening or watching on YouTube. Again, thank you for the opportunity to be with you this morning who are here in person. Anybody who may be watching around campus on the live stream, encourage you to come on down. We have tons of room this morning. That was awesome, thank you. Had some opening music that stirred me up. Partly from the connection that I have with the person who shared. And the subject for today is honesty, and it's a subject that connects to connection, but it also is a subject that I address often. Not only is it one of the 19 topics of the Caron Chapel service, it's also the subject of a lecture I provide every fourth week, so I address it more routinely. And I always try to challenge myself with fresh content when I'm bringing similar topic areas, especially in the chapel service. And so here we go. And it's interesting that I got a chance to acknowledge the person who just shared music, because I do want to connect honesty and intimacy today. I think they're very, very fundamentally connected. And honesty is a shout out in addiction recovery, especially in the historic documents of the Alcoholics Anonymous movement. There are citations in preparatory materials and in appendices about honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness, which are the HOW, the how of the recovery, of that recovery movement. And I'm sure if you were expert in recovery dharma, or if you were the person who would explore the smart recovery, those are the three kind of strains that we as clinicians tend to be most excited about supporting for our clients. Is that SMART and recovery dharma and the 12-step spheres all, like, you know, there's a thing about lying when you're an addict. It just sort of comes like there's a mean line. How can you tell an addict is lying? Their lips are moving, and yes, it's not kind. But there's a point there. It sort of goes with the journey, and especially if you're talking about the deep kind of authenticity thing rather than the mere factual honesty, dishonesty thing. So, the kind of thing that a breathalyzer or a blood test would fact check against. I'm not talking only about that, although that's a piece of the puzzle, but I'm talking about authentic self-presentation. And that gets messed up when you have to sort of protect your addictive world. So the very first part of what I wanted to talk about in substance has to do with human beings craving for connection. And I think we have that. I could get totally nerdy and make a variety of different disciplines come to the table to support that we are human beings who yearn to be able to be connected to each other. And this fundamental need, I will say, without connectedness, we know that babies will not flourish, and that human beings, solitary confinement is really toxic. It used to be. There are experiments in history that have shown it does not work as a part of incarceration methods. And we need this kind of thing to be connected to one another. And yet it's a bit of a mystery. Like, to be fully known is an incredible thing. I just was listening to something on the radio, and somebody was talking about how poetry and music convey deeper parts of who we are than we can sort of analytically put down there. And I think there's a truth to that. Like, I heard a long time ago somebody said to sing a psalm is to pray twice. That the music carries an aspect of the meaning, and then the words carry an aspect of the meaning. And yet, if I can use singing and text, it doesn't mean that you fully enter into my reality. And so this is part of where, if I'm obfuscating, if I'm intentionally pulling away and not unmasking some part of myself, that adds to the challenge of authentically experiencing connectedness. And one of the things that struck me this week was also that the job is twofold. Like, if I want to be known, I need an other, a person who is going to be the knower, to also be generous and willing to kind of enter in the activity of trying to know me, right? And so this is like one of the reasons why this is, I think, so rare in our world, is that both the receiver and the giver of a knowing connection can be less than great at their task. And gosh, in the world we live in, we have so much fakeness, really like the partiality or the challenge to put your best foot forward, and I'd like to say that's new. I was thinking about that. I wanted to make an argument that in pre-industrialized culture maybe it wasn't. I don't know, I'm pretty sure that there's been a fakey thing that's going on for a long time. I remember reading a Dickens novel. I'm way off my script, but anyway, a Dickens novel where in the Dickens era, he talked about this family that were the nouveau riche, and they were called the Vandeveers. And my English teacher said, do you hear the veneer word there? Like, this is people who put on airs, who wanted to be seen as having more than they did, but it takes courage to decide to unmask. Even if you're not a person who suffers from big T trauma, even if you haven't been in battle or you haven't been, the victim of some sort of violent crime, or you're not a survivor of some terrible natural disaster or whatever, those things induce this type of human response often that is something that we work to help diagnose and set people on a journey to seek to find how to find healing from. But all of us have traumatic experience, and I think it's the difficulty of life that causes us to turtle, to be reluctant to have people see. And one of my favorite experiences in my seminary and post-seminary education was to study in philosophy work about meaning and connection between people, and then I'm going to get to the theological side of it. But I'm sure he's passed away. There was a writer who influenced me a great deal. His name was Paul Ricoeur. If any of you know Ricoeur, good for you. It's a very nerdy thing to know. But Paul Ricoeur contributed an expression which became really important in this area of philosophy, which is the fusion of horizons. And when Paul Ricoeur was writing about it, he was talking about how human beings engage, especially with scripture. So this is a text that is from antiquity, and it has a horizon of meaning. This is the author putting into the text a thought world, and I'm the reader, and I want to enter it. And that if there is, if the song or the psalm or the parable or the teaching inspires me, and I feel a sense of connectedness with this ancient writer, it's because the fusion of our thought worlds occurs, and there's something, an intertwining of me with a being from long ago. It's a beautiful thing. This is a gorgeous idea. But then people have pointed out, it's not only hard to enter into the thought world of an old text, it's hard for people to do this anyway. It's hard for us to entwine our thought worlds and to find real connection, to really get one another and to do this. And it does require willing participation in the activity of this fusion on the part of both people. And so masquerading and hiding and I don't want to talk about this. I don't want you to see my warts. I don't want you to know I'm imperfect. Just shoots the hope for fusion horizons right out of the sky. Just forget it. If I really want to connect to you, and then I'm I want this part of me to connect to you, but I'm not going to let you see this part of me. Then it's like I'm trying to run with one leg tied to the other. There's just no way. I can maybe hop, but we're never going to get to that authentic connection. And addiction is the liar in this. Addiction is a craving, a yearning, a desire to experience connection that's a fake friend. It tells us that we can use this stream of connectedness instead of doing the work to authentically connect with another human being. And sometimes, unfortunately, addiction even hijacks the human being connection with things like sex to pretend you're getting deeper connection. Most people that I've worked with who have sex-related addictive disorders tell me that in the acting out, they feel that sense of but it's a fake fusion horizons, and one of the tells of its fakeness is that at the end of the act, there's a flooding of shame. So this is when a person contracts with a paid sex worker or like whatever, and that it doesn't really work for what it's supposed to do. Similarly, Johnny Walker Red and Jose Cuervo may be named liquors, but they don't contribute to the richness of a real relationship in the same way that an honest marriage or honest friendship or an honest participation in a team process. Those are beautiful, beautiful things. And to think that we can satisfy the hunger for it in the addiction lane is a lie. We all know it's a lie. But it's a lie that so many of us have fallen prey to. That's why places like this exist. And one of the reasons why we're in such a paucity, such a lack of authentic connectedness, is that it is hard, and the world offers us all of these alternatives. And then our wounding makes it especially hard. So it takes guts, it takes willingness, and it takes, it's a leap of faith of a certain kind. It's a leap of hope that if I let you see me in some more authentic way, you won't shoot me down. And I often tell our patients, I'm gonna try to do this without using the word I use when I don't care about being on recording, but I tell my patients, if I risk and let you see me, and you do shoot me down, then forget you. I need to move to somebody who will accept me as who I am. But sadly, sometimes there's this part of us that like yearns and yearns and yearns to go to the very people who are not willing to see us in the fullness of who we are. This could be a parent, or it could be a lover, or it could be whatever, and there's some entrapment that we have wanting to get that approval from that person, and we get stuck in that loop. It's just it's a tragic thing. So I don't often spend a ton of time here from this spot talking about God. And there's a variety of reasons for that, including my own struggle with faith. But this week, early in the week, there was a text that came to my attention, and you're going to hear it read and then also sung later. But it's one of the Hebrew Psalms. This is a Jewish writing that is thought to be a poem or a song. And there's things that we don't know about these ancient texts, and they're translated, at least now we have scholars who try to translate directly out of the ancient Hebrew, but in the old days you have things translated from Hebrew to Latin, and then from Latin to the common language or whatever. So like multiple translations like a bad, call it Xerox copy, but copy, you get fuzziness. Anyway, the 139th Psalm proposes that God searches and knows us. That's the opening line. You search me and you know me. Which is this incredible promise. It's like, is that true? Does God search me and know me? I have to tell you, I've moved from staunch atheism to tentative faith. And on any good day, I have really strong faith, but my strong faith still has this edge of like, really? And I recently was talking to somebody who's a mentor for me, and I was telling him I struggle because I don't have this like, I know that I know that I know that I know that I know. It's not that I haven't come to be quite persuaded of there being something mysterious that I cannot fully explain. That I'm quite persuaded of. That I don't have it all figured out, I'm quite persuaded of. And then weird stuff happens that seems to be peculiarly interconnected in ways that I don't think science does a good job of explaining. I'm quite persuaded of that. These are the synchronicities and all that sort of stuff. And to try and reconnect previously with my previous outline, one of the things I also will say is not only do human beings have a hunger for connection, but human beings have a hunger for sacred connectedness, for communion, which is to hijack the term that's used in Christian circles for a particular activity, sacramental, memorial, and action, where bread and cup are part of what is meant there. Although you can talk about communion in a secular way. You can talk about communion of a team or communion of a thing. And I think that's an interesting capacity of the non-religious communities to use that same language. But the early AA community talked about this a lot, and in fact, still, if you go to AA, you'll hear about people talk about a hole in the soul. That we have a hole in the soul, and some people even say it's a God-shaped hole in the soul. We have this yearning to be known and fully, to have a relationship with that from which all things unfold, and perhaps that which, in a way beyond our understanding, governs the inner and transcending workings of all that is. And I think the barrier, if you trust the psalm, and it's saying, is not now on the divine part, it's really on our part. And I think, I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready to be fully known, and I don't know if I really believe, but it still requires a leap, right? It's a decision. I was about to say this and then finish saying, I have a mentor, and I was telling him that I struggle with the imperfection of my faith, and his name is Tom, and Tom was like, Jack, I'm really happy I don't have perfect faith. And I was like, really? Because I see him as a person I look up to. And he said, yeah, because that reminds me of my need for God. I was like, wow. I heard somebody say, that's what it did to me. It made me think about, like, if I was totally sure and confident, is that faith, right? Maybe it isn't. Faith includes this willing entrance into a connectedness that I may not be able to fully explain or understand. It helped me deepen my understanding of what faith is when I stopped beating myself up for not being perfect at it. So, not only when I talk about Paul Ricoeur and the fusion of horizons and connection for human to human, but I have another person I'll bring to the table, is a Roman Catholic theologian and philosopher named Louis-Marie Chauvet. And in my nerd world, I was very affected by the writings of Chauvet. And Chauvet, Symbol and Sacrament, very dense text, hard to read, but he speculates after hundreds of years of history of people trying to think academically about the nature of sacrament in the Catholic traditions. He speculates that absence and not knowing is part of how mystery enters into these things that ritual communities do. And that were it concrete and fully explainable, it would not be a mystery. It would not be an inbreaking of the not knowing. I think that's a really it helped me. It's like, oh, so if I could reduce this to a fully explainable thing, then it would be a fully explainable thing. It would not be a transcendent thing. So where I wanted to get today was honesty, right? I want to cry. It's like we have an alternative. To either be freaking alone and in our own turtle world, or to risk connection here with each other and to risk belief that there is connection available to us from outside, from other. One of my favorite teachers in the world of theology was also a fellow named, anyway, wrote Jean-Luc Marion. And Marion writes this book, God Without Being. And the hypotheses of these more contemporary theologians is that the nature of God is to try and cross the chasm of not knowing. And that's a beautiful idea, right? That this is what maybe has been talked about faith all through history. And the yearning for connectedness and faith is not sureness, it's not certainty, it's a leap across the chasm of not knowing. It's like a poem or a song that tries to do and say more than I can express inside of me. And I have that craving. I desire to be in connection with this that is beyond my ability to explain and understand. And I don't know how to be more honest with you than that, is to say, yes, I'm a preacher here, I'm in a robe and stole, and I am graced with the privilege of speaking to you about sacredness, especially in a really urgent time and place. We have people who come in here, and their lives are tail spinning out. The next places on the stopping place are jails, institutions, and death. By the way, institution you've already hit. So, these are dire straits. And there's history, at least 70 years of history in the addiction recovery movement to say that faith is a piece of the puzzle. That that connectedness to something beyond ourselves is a piece of the puzzle. And many of you come into my office and you want a handhold. You want to know exactly how to do it. You want to know how it works. You want to know, is it reliable? Will it, deliver? And sadly, some of you want the Santa Claus God. You want to know, if you pray for XYZ, will you get XYZ? First of all, no. Maybe, but no guarantees on Santa Claus. Just like, sorry if there's any little kids in the room, but there's news for you ahead. And the most honest thing I can say for those of us who hunger is that faith works. Faith contributes to stability and resilience that is necessary for survival better than the drugs, the alcohol, the shopping, the compulsive acting out with sex, the internet porn, all those things that people get hooked on because they are trying something other than these real solutions, which are love and faith. Love and faith are the fountains from which to drink, the wells from which to get your nourishments and sustenance that will hold you in a way that no addict stream could ever promise. Those promises that you get from the heroin or the, whatever it is, may in the moment feel so nourishing that you think that they are the answer to the craving that is in your heart. But all you need to do is pay attention to where those roads take people in the end. And those people, talk to one another, those who are patients, about how the honest truth of the lie of those roads comes to be seen in moments and places like this. Or at worse, at death's door, and in incarceration, and in the tragic end of the life of an addict, who all they've been trying to do is fill this hunger, and all that's been inhibiting them from doing it in love and faith is fear and not knowing. So I want to tell you, and I'll finish here in a very short time, that I think this is a gutsy thing. I think people who come here deserve to be congratulated because it takes courage to do this. The person who just sang for us is on a leap to a next level of the recovery journey. And I just think this is an amazing and beautiful thing that happens when people who have gone down an unsatisfying road are intervened on often, but take the invitation to try the better path. And the better path is not, it seems so dangerous to let me tell you what's not okay in me. But that's where love is. Love is not in me approving of some partial presentation of you. And then to take this, I think, noble, humble path of admitting that I don't have it all figured out. And that I seek to be held in the arms of care that I cannot explain or understand. Thank you so much.